and now people will be able to hear us. So
ideally, though, 15 seconds, this thing will switch, and if it does,
there's nobody else joined, so we could potentially still talk, but once people join.
but switch.
All right, so I think we're all set. We're just going to have to potentially make sure Mark is sharing the right screen when he starts his presentation.
And what did he say about polls? Did he say anything?
Hey, Mike.
There's no polls. Yeah.
Kumar, just talk to Kumar. He was having a problem logging in, but he should be fine now. He's going to share his screen. He's going to start the presentation, and then I'm going to take over on chapter 3 and 4 and 5. I'm going to share my own screen, and he'll finish it up. That's how we decide to do it.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, I'm going to have to I'll leave the meeting now. I have an appointment at 11 o'clock. So
No
okay,
problem.
you have to leave at 11. Okay. Who's going to introduce the meeting?
Oh.
Ourselves?
Yeah, could you do it yourselves? This is my first one I'm kind of running. My name's Colby. I'm kind of been taking over for Miles. If you don't mind introducing yourself until I get a hang of it.
No problem. I hope Kumar comes in a little earlier so we can talk about this quickly. Who is here until 11?
Who's leaving at 11?
Yeah.
Mike
Mike is leaving at 11.
Yeah,
I have to leave at like 10 to 11.
Oh, 10 to 11.
Yeah,
Wow,
so
okay. Who's gonna be here? Anybody?
me, Colby. My name's Colby.
Okay, Colby. Okay, I'm sorry. You're just saying Omnex webinar, so I don't know what's
Yeah.
what's the name behind it.
Not a problem. Yep.
Okay, Colby. Okay, so Colby, are you here until we start? I don't have any problem introducing ourselves. We've done this, so many times that there's no problem. But I want Kumar to log in quickly so we can talk to him about that.
Okay. Yeah, and let me know when you want me to stop sharing so you can take over.
Alrighty, thanks.
and I had the link sent to Andre as well, so he can potentially join.
Okay.
So
Hi, Kumar.
Hello, Kumar.
Yeah, good. Okay. All right. Mike Miller is going to leave a bit sooner.
Okay.
And so at 11 o'clock, you'll just present your version of the slides. We'll just introduce ourselves and then we'll get going.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Kumar.
So, Mike, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can just do share screen and start presenting my slides.
Right.
Can I do a dry run now?
Yeah, there's no one else on, so go ahead and try that. Colby Parks is our new person that's going to be running
Mhm.
the presentations.
Okay,
So he's on here now. I have an appointment at 11 o'clock, so I'll be leaving in a few minutes here.
that's fine. Is Colby on the call now?
Yeah, he's on next webinars.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, all right.
I just stopped sharing my
so-
screen if you want to try.
I'm gonna try sharing my screen here. All right. Let's see how that comes across. So I got it in PowerPoint, and then now I'm putting it in presentation mode. Does that look okay?
No, that's the wrong screen. So go to display settings and swap view.
Yeah, swap view or whatever. I always have that problem.
Okay.
There you go. Yep.
Now
Yep.
it's in this. Okay. Okay.
Now, let me quickly share mine also to make sure that I can share.
Okay.
If you don't mind, Kumar.
Yeah. I'm gonna stop sharing. So
Please.
all right.
I just want to make sure mine works also when the time comes. Okay, now I'm sharing, but I want to make sure.
The start is the bottom right,
Yeah,
right next to the slider.
I'm sharing. Is that looking okay?
Okay. Yeah, now it is.
Now it's fine.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, Kumar, I'll stop sharing.
All right.
Thanks.
So Colby, are you going to do an intro?
This is my first one. I'd kind of like if you guys can do your own, and then I can learn that.
Okay. No, there was, do we know how many participants we
Yeah,
are expecting?
how many participants are there?
I am not sure how many we have signed up.
36 people signed up.
Oh, okay, good, thanks,
Okay, thanks.
thanks.
But
They're
obviously,
all
we
not
don't know how many are
Omnex people, I
committed.
hope. So do you have this presentation in a continuous feed, and then at 11 o'clock I do share screen and switch to mine?
Yep.
Right. Yep. And then go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, all right.
I'm
Okay.
looking at the attendee list. I don't see a lot of Omnex people. So
Good. Happy to
Hey,
hear.
Kumar, hey,
Yeah.
Kumar. At the very beginning, when you come on before, I'll come on with you just so that we can present ourselves together, and then
Okay.
I'll let you get going. Okay?
Okay. All right.
Thanks.
I think the second or third slide is where we introduce ourselves. So I think there's a short intro on Omnex, and then we'll introduce ourselves, and then I'll launch into the material itself.
okay.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mike.
No problem.
Thanks, guys.
All right. I'm going to be leaving here. So good luck.
Thanks, Mike.
Alrighty. Bye.
Thank you.
that coming through okay, Mark?
Yes, just need to make sure that it's a full screen display.
Oh.
Go to display settings up there. Yep, that one. And perfect.
Okay. All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Tisax and EVAV webinar presented by Omnex. I have my colleague Mark Atai with
Morning.
me. In a couple of slides, we will both introduce ourselves. Let me start with a quick introduction of Omnex and who we are. Omnex is headquartered in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and we are a training, consulting, and software solutions company, been in business for well over 35 years. And we have over 700 employees globally working in 28 countries. This is a snapshot of where we are globally. Strong presence in North America. And I already mentioned that Ann Arbor, Michigan is the headquarters. We have a very strong presence in Asia. China being the world's largest automotive market, we have 6 locations in China. We have a very strong presence in the Far East, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, places like that. Much of our software is developed in India and Europe. Our main office in Europe is in Germany, in Berlin, and other parts of Europe. So that's where we are globally. And we're going to get to the Tisax portion itself. This is a preview of what's to come by way of content and what we're going to cover in this webinar. Before we talk about ourselves, I also wanted to mention that Mark and I are going to go for roughly 45 to 50 minutes. And then we will have a portion for question and answer. Because I have the presentation in full screen mode, I'm not able to see how many participants have signed on to the webinar. And I'm also not able to see if somebody is able to put something in the chat window. But I would encourage you to keep track of your questions that you may have. So when we allow for a time for Q&A at the end, we can cover any of your questions at that time. Okay? So with that, a little bit about myself. I am a mechanical engineer by training. I have spent about 30 years working in the automotive industry globally. I've had the unique privilege of working for the automotive industry in 5 countries and 3 continents, between North America, Europe, and Asia. So I've seen the automotive industry through a global perspective. For Omnex, I have done training, consulting engagements, and I do implementation support. I am a lead auditor, certified lead auditor in a variety of standards that is listed on this slide. And I've been associated with the Tisax standard that we're going to talk about mostly for about 2.5 to 3 years at this point. With that, I will let Mark introduce himself.
Thanks, Kumar. My name is Mark Atai. I'm a consultant for Omnex. And contrary to the experience that Kumar has, I've been in traditional cybersecurity, information security world for about 30 years now. And it is only in the last 2 or 3 years that I started getting into Tisax. I've always gotten the ISO 27001 experience, but Tisax is a little bit new for me, but I've gotten involved in for quite some time now. I've basically given help and counsel to a lot of corporations inside the government and in private sector. So I'm well-rounded. Anything that has to do with information security. I think I'll just stop at this point. By the way, I have a master's in computer science and then a master's in cybersecurity. So it's kind of a nice combination there that I've been basically working with for quite some time now. Thank you. Go ahead, my friend Kumar.
Thank you. All right, so Tisax stands for Trusted Information Security Assessment Exchange. And it was founded in the year 2000. EMX is the organization that puts forward the Tisax. I wouldn't call it a standard, it's more of a framework. So the EMX website is where you can find all things Tisax. And EMX is closely associated with VDA. The VDA, expansion of VDA is Verband der Automobilindustrie. That's German for the Union of Car Makers, or the car industry. That's who has put forward the Tisax requirement. And much of what we're going to talk about through the course of this webinar is available through the EMX website. So the EMX website will be a key resource that you would have to pay attention to if you are looking to be Tisax certified. Okay. So why is information security important to OEMs? So that's what this is talking about. And it also addresses the question, is Tisax mandatory? Okay. So it started out that the German OEMs, VW, BMW, Daimler, they wanted to ensure that their supply chain had certain checks and balances put around their information security. And the German OEMs have now made it a fundamental requirement that if you are a supplier to the German OEMs, in order to qualify for an RFQ, you have to either be certified to Tisax, or you have to be on the path to being certified to Tisax. They increasingly made it a mandatory requirement to be able to qualify for business with the German OEMs. It started out at the German OEMs, but now the scope of it is expanding from what recently that I'm hearing. Even companies like Tesla, Stellantis have now started to express interest in their suppliers being Tisax certified. 6123 that this addresses at the bottom is a clause straight out of IATF 16949. 6123 talks about business contingency plans. And in business contingency plans, a significant portion of business contingency is the contingencies that could result from cyber attacks and being held to ransomware and things of that nature. And especially in this day and age, it is not only the computers that are in an office environment that are exposed to cyber attacks. We even have it, we're increasingly in the day and age of IoT, Internet of Things. So a lot of shop floor equipment is also now connected to the internet. They are connected to the manufacturer, and they are sending information, diagnostic information about how the equipment is performing, when it would be needing maintenance and things of that nature through the internet. So that exposes them to bad actors that can infiltrate those equipment and devices and possibly cause it to malfunction. In addition to cybersecurity and information being compromised, what you see at the bottom, GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, is a key legal requirement or a compliance requirement in Europe that ensures that personally identifiable information, especially things like social security numbers, health insurance related compensation, those kinds of information are safeguarded and not compromised. So Tisax also has a lot to say about personally identifiable information and the need for protecting information of that from being compromised. Tisax works very closely with ISO 27001. ISO 27001 is a standard that the ISMS, Information Security Management System. Many of you are probably familiar with QMS, the Quality Management System. The ISO 27001 primarily deals with the ISMS, the Information Security Management System. So Tisax and ISO 27001 have a lot of commonality. And if you have a ISO 27001 ISMS in place, that is going to help you get a jump start on what you would need to do to become Tisax certified. All right, chapter 2. So this is what we're going to cover: why we need a Tisax label and security controls for our assets. So Tisax, even though I use the word certification, you cannot get certified to Tisax. You can only get a label assigned for Tisax. But certification is a term that most people are, they commonly understand. So if I start talking about labels, it may raise a question: what's a label? Right? So when I'm talking about labels, it's the equivalent of a certification in an ISO standard, if you will. Okay, so we're going to talk about Tisax labels, the Tisax participant handbook. That is what you can download from the EMX website. It also has a ISA, the independent self-assessment. So that's an Excel file with a lot of worksheets in it, with what you can use to do a self-assessment on your management system yourself. And then we're going to talk about maturity levels within Tisax, and then the assessment levels. The assessment levels is specific to a label that you could be given after you go through the Tisax implementation process. Okay. Why do we need Tisax certification? To protect organizational assets and information needed for the business, and to protect customer and intellectual property from threats or loss. Okay, it's both internally and externally. So hackers these days are very active. The point of this slide is, if Microsoft can be hacked, what about the average company out there? So cybersecurity is something that you have to be aware of, and you have to go to great lengths to ensure that you are taking all the right steps to protect your information. This is about legal requirements. Protect your organization from violating legal compliance. GDPR that I talked about, the General Data Protection Regulation. That is a legal requirement that Tisax helps you ensure that you are meeting. So Tisax, being certified to Tisax, in addition to protecting yourself internally and protecting your customers' data, it is also going to help you make sure that you meet legal requirements. These are just some examples. Laptops or mobile phones are devices that can easily be lost or misplaced. And especially if they have intellectual property and company critical information, that loss can be a costly loss. On the right side, there is a picture of an F1 racing car prototype that somebody accidentally forgot in the boot of a rental car. And these are examples of actual instances, real life instances where intellectual property has been compromised. Have you ever panicked when you got hit with a ransomware attack? And these days you hear about this almost every week. You hear that some other organization has been hacked, and their confidential information has been put out into the public, or they may have been held for ransomware, right? This is another example. This is a casino in Las Vegas that was hacked through the fish tank. They had a automated device that connects to the internet that they use to feed the fish in the fish tank. And probably this device was connected to the Wi-Fi, and the admin password was 0000 or something very basic like that. And hackers managed to get into the casino information network through the fish tank. These kinds of things are happening all the time. ENX website. So I believe it's enx.com. So this is what it looks like. The participant handbook that I talked about, that is over here, that you can download. And all of these are free, okay? You don't even have to subscribe to it. You can just go on the website and you can download all this information. And it has a table of contents that talks about all things Tisax that you can look up. The downloads is where you would be able to get the ISA, the Information Security Assessment, right? That's the big Excel file that I told you that has multiple worksheets in it that you would have to use to do a self-assessment on your own information system. All right, so this is a website that I would highly recommend that if you're going for Tisax certification, that you get familiar with, and you go and download the necessary documents. Also wanted to mention that there is a version 5.1, I believe, and a version 6.0 for the ISA. Tisax is about to transition to version 6.0. starting April 1st. So literally in less than a week, we're going to transition to the next version of the independent self. I keep calling it independent information security assessment. We're about to transition into that. If you're not familiar with the previous version 5.1 that we are currently in, it's not a big deal. You can just start with version 6.0 that we're about to go into starting April 1st. The changes from 5.1 to 6.0 is not that drastic. So we don't need to worry ourselves too much about the changes. Just so you know that if you're just starting on your Tisax journey now, April 1st is when the Tisax is officially transitioning to the new version of it. All right. The importance of relevant interested parties and their relevant requirements. So you have customers, supply partners, and the enterprise. And these are talking about expectations. So expectations can be stated, unstated, assumed, or unicorn. It's just a classification of different types of expectations from various interested parties. Okay, so I mentioned Tisax labels. This is first talking about maturity levels. And this is maturity levels that you will see in the ISA Excel worksheet that you can download from the ENX website. And you have maturity level 1 through 5, and the expectation is that your processes are at maturity level 3. So the Excel independent, there I go again. The ISA self-assessment Excel file, you would go through and you would score yourself on various controls that you have in your information security management system. And the goal is to end up with at least a 2.71 or better score to be able to qualify for a Tisax label. We'll talk more about that. I just wanted to mention that there's different maturity levels. The goal is to be at maturity level 3. And if you score an average of 2.71, you will have achieved a maturity level of 3. And as the system gets better, when the system matures and it's running well, and you are meeting your metrics, and you are getting into more continuous improvement kind of mode, then you will eventually move to maturity levels 4 and 5. But the initial expectation is to be at a maturity level 3. Sorry. Okay, so this is what the Excel worksheet looks like. This is an indication of what's in maturity level 2 and maturity level 3. Level 2 is managed. Level 3 is established. And it talks more detail of control of process implementation and so on. A process for achieving objectives is followed. Process documentation, process implementation evidence are available. And then in established, standard process is integrated into overall system is followed. Dependencies on other processes are documented and suitable interfaces are created. All of this you should be able to get when you download the Excel file yourself. And it also gives you such definitions on maturity levels 4 and 5. So 0 is incomplete, where you have nothing. 1 is performed, 2 and 3 we just looked at, which are managed and established, and the goal is to end up with a maturity level of 3. And then maturity level 4 is predictable, and 5 is the top maturity level where you are optimizing the system. The higher the protection needs, the more your partner is interested in making sure that it is safe to let you handle their information. Okay, so Tisax has 3 assessment levels, and we will talk about those levels in the next couple of slides. So the assessment level defines which assessment method the auditor has to apply. So the higher the assessment level, the more in-depth the audit is going to be to recommend you for a certain Tisax label, okay? And the higher the assessment level, the greater the need on protecting information, because what your company does is involves a lot of intellectual property, and which, if it's compromised, can result in serious damage to the business and serious damage to the customer. All right, so again, this is the maturity levels that we just talked about. And this is the different labels, okay? Assessment level 1, level 2, level 3. So there's a total of 3 labels that you can get with Tisax. And this is talking about the amount of work that goes into getting each of the labels. So a self-assessment, which is that ISA Excel file, that's required in all cases. And that self-assessment is something that you would have to do repeatedly. It's not a one and done thing. As the system matures, you have to do it at multiple times. As you implement procedures and policies, and you are starting to work to the procedures and policies, and you're collecting metrics, and you are doing course correction and improving procedures and processes in your system, it is a good idea to do the ISA at multiple times and score yourself and see where you end up, right? So for an assessment level 1, you do not require evidence, but in level 2 and level 3, you would need assessments with proof of evidence. Interviews, not required for level 1. You can have a remote audit for level 2, and level 3 has to be an on-site audit. And then on-site audits are not required. In the case of level 2, it's a case-by-case basis. That's up to the decision of the third-party registrar. And in assessment level 3, it's always required that you have an on-site audit. Okay, this is a comparison between Tisax and ISO 27001. Okay, I mentioned to you earlier that Tisax is not a certification. You're assigned a label at the end of the audit process or implementation and audit process for Tisax. ISO 27001, like other ISO standards, once you have an information system in place and you have an audit, it's pretty similar to an ISO 9001 audit. You would be recommended for certification. You would get a certificate at the end of it, okay? So going through this table, so Tisax is based on ISO 27001 and the ISA Excel assessment document. It is not a complete management system. And the filled-in ISA becomes the SOA. The SOA is a statement of applicability. We're going to talk about that more a little later in the presentation. So the statement of applicability is mainly referring to a list of controls that you apply to the information system. Okay. So that's for Tisax. In the case of ISO 27001, it follows the same high-level structure that many ISO standards follow. So clause 4 through clause 10, which you may be familiar with. Clause 4 starts with context of the organization. Clause 5 is leadership. Clause 6 is planning, and so on. So the ISO 27001 follows the same high-level structure, and it is a complete management system because you would have an ISMS that you would be working to, and it has a formal statement of applicability that goes through all the controls that are in the Annex A portion of ISO 27001. I already mentioned in the case of Tisax, in terms of certification, you get a label at the end of the Tisax process. In the case of ISO 27001, you would get a certificate after you have a successful stage 2 audit. The duration, the duration is the same. They're both valid for 3 years. Okay. The key difference is in the case of ISO 27001, you would have surveillance audits for 2 years, and the 3rd year is a recertification audit. In the case of Tisax, there is no surveillance audits. You would be expected to keep doing the ISA self-assessments on your own, but there is no surveillance audit by a third-party registrar, okay? So the ISA self-assessments is kind of the equivalent of an internal audit that you would do on yourself, okay? So those are some key differences between the two standards. Chapter 3. Mark, did I say you were going to?
Yes, yes, I'm taking up 3.
Okay, carry on.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah, let me share my screen. Okay, good. All right, make sure I slide. Do you see my screen full?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the protection goals and organizational assets, kind of going back to the commonalities between Tisax and ISO 27001. I believe Kumar mentioned several times that Tisax and ISO 27001 kind of they are not joined by the hips, but they have a lot of commonalities, especially Tisax coming out of the controls, using the controls, some, not all of them, but some of the controls that ISO 27001 uses. Remember that ISO 27001 is a more established kind of standard. So when Tisax came out, decided why reinvent the wheels about some of these security controls. So they borrowed several controls from ISO 27001, and that is why we'll see a lot of commonalities between Tisax and ISO 27001. And then obviously we'll talk about assets, which are critical, both in 27001 and Tisax especially. When you are doing an assessment, in addition to, I believe, no, okay, that's good. The CIA, that we call it the triad, that coming from ISO 27001 is a well-known foundation for information security in ISO 27001. Tisax has just adopted the CIA triad, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, but added a couple of controls for their needs, very high protection needs and high protection needs, and those will come out of what they call prototypes when you are actually designing cars or car parts or or anything that is related to cars. And then high protection needs, for example, for data, you can have high protection needs for data security. So we'll talk a little bit about commonalities between 27001 and Tisax. And also, when you are talking about Tisax, a couple of new things that are introduced in the Tisax implementation, which is should requirements and must requirements. We'll see that in a couple of slides when we talk a little bit about the ISA worksheet that Kumar talked about. Okay, what are assets? For a simple definition of asset is anything that is important for your organization, right? And one asset that is important for one organization can be not that important for another organization. But what you see in front of you is just general type of assets. You can have more, you can have less, but these are general categories of what we call assets. Intellectual property, financial, your code, software code that you have developed, customer data, personal data. I believe Kumar mentioned GDPR. That's one of the personal data that you need to really pay attention to when you are doing an assessment. Product designs, proprietary process secrets, organizational knowledge, and many more, depending on what you do as a business. You want to protect whatever is important for your business. That's what is an asset. And when you do the asset list, you have to make sure that you do a risk assessment, risk management for those assets to make sure that you can protect them. As a matter of fact, you have to also classify your assets to make sure that they get the appropriate security. Here, there are three main, just at a very, very high level: physical assets, information assets, people assets. I always, the third one is not the least of them. Actually, in my view, is most important one of them. Your employees, your contractors, individuals who have something to do with your company, that have access to your security or anything like that. So those, for me, are the most critical that you need to take care of first. Nobody tells you that. I'm just telling you from my experience. I always tell my customers that you need to take care of your employees. You need to make sure they understand how to protect your information, your assets. Obviously, information asset these days is critical. That's how they get into. By the way, not only just for information asset, they get to your things using employees also. And then physical assets, obviously, you have to protect entry into your building, entry into secure areas that hold servers, computers, etc. So at the very high level, I'm going to go a little quickly here, looking at the time. So physical assets are just how you get to sensitive areas of the company, how you get to sensitive information, equipment, and all those things. This is, you can basically classify these assets the way you want it. Basically, what we're showing you here is Homeland Security Advisory System. They classify their assets from low to severe. You don't have to do this necessarily. You can classify them from 1 to 5, from 100 to 20, 200. However, the system works for you is how you basically classify. The only thing that is required here is you have a policy that states not only what you are classifying, but how you are classifying them. And what do they mean? Is there a certain point that you reach and you say, well, at this, whether it's a level 3 or 5 or 100, at this level, okay, we can accept the risk that we have determined. But when it gets to 300, 400, we need to do something with it. We need to basically come up with a risk. Well, first of all, you need to identify the risk, and then you need to decide whether it is an acceptable risk or a risk that basically needs to be treated. It is an area that Tisax takes very, very seriously. When I get into an audit for Tisax, I spent quite a bit of time on these assets. I would like to know whether a proper classification has been done, how it was done, who is aware of these classifications, and what have they done with it in terms of risk assessment. Yeah, this is something new, but you need to be aware of it. SEC filings now mandate that you basically report within 4 business days if you have a major hack. This wasn't something that we saw before. It was kind of left to the companies to do whatever they want to do, whether they want to classify or they want to report it, or they want to just stay quiet with it. I've always recommended, even this thing came out, that as a company, you need to really report a major incident to your partners, to your clients. I mean, there is a way to report a hack. There's a way to report a major hack. There's a way to report a minor hack, but you need to report it somehow. That, at least that's my recommendation as an expert in cybersecurity. But now it is mandatory that you do report what is called material hack. You define what that is, but a material hack that has affected your operations. The VDA, Kumar talked a little bit about it. Basically, it has what I'm calling 3 catalogs: information security catalog, prototype catalogs, and data security catalogs. The next one that you'll see when you download the catalogs would be self-assessment that we're going to talk about shortly here. This is not the class to really go through how you do a Tisax implementation, but this is just a high-level view of what it is about and what you get from it. The VDA and I think Kumar talked about it. It is the Automobile Association. It started with German manufacturers and then kind of is now all over the world, really. France also participated in it at the beginning, but it's now all over the world, in Europe, in America, in everywhere, basically. And they are the one that actually, they are the one that monitor. They are the one that put out what companies need to do in terms of securing their assets, information security, as I talked about, prototypes, and data security. By the way, this is 5.1 at the top there. Don't worry about it. We're going to be moving into 6.1 just in about a week or so. I don't want to talk about, this is not a course about talking about the difference between 5.1 and 6.1 that's going to come out, but it isn't too much different, except that they are put on, I'm just telling you quickly, they are put an emphasis on 6.1 on basically making sure that you have a backup, your system, not just a system in terms of computer system, but in terms of operations. How do you continue working when you have a major cybersecurity attack? I'm going to talk briefly about scopes here. There are different types of scopes, actually, not just in Tisax, but in 27001. The Tisax scope is much easier, just to be honest with you. So let me talk about those. There are 2 types of scope in Tisax. You have a generic one that 90% of companies use, and then you have kind of a specific or custom scope. And in that case, if you decide to use that, you have a little more work to do in terms of defining what that customized scope is. But as I said, 90% of customers just use the sender scope and then move on. This is the first tab that you're going to see after definitions and what is Tisax is about and all those things. This is the first major catalog, information security assessment. It talks, this is a kind of the meat of ISA, and talks about all the information security requirements that you need to fulfill. And it depends on, we'll talk a little bit here about SOA. Depending on what you do as a business, depending on what your requirements are, you're gonna see a whole bunch of requirements, controls in both, no, not both, but I say the information security, also in prototypes. If you don't do any prototypes, you just don't look at that sheet at all. If you don't do any data security, if you don't have any data security requirements, you don't look at it at all. But most people have to look at the first sheet, which is information security. The ISA workbook, yes, start with definitions and security. I'm going to move to this, which I think has a little more value to you. This is the spider chart, and it is very common when you are doing an assessment in Tisax. This is one of those first things that you want to do, actually, when you are either studying or you are waiting to do an implementation for Tisax. It tells you where you are based around around the spider web. You see all the controls for information security that is mentioned there. It has changed a little bit, but those are the main ones that you need to be concerned about. So you basically fill out the table in the sheet, and at the end you have this this chart that tells you where you are with your number. Again, I think Kuma mentioned earlier that the number that you're looking for really is 3. I mean, you can go to 4 and 5, but really nobody pays attention to 4 and 5. You want to be established. You want to be at 3, at level 3. And this is how you see your first go at making an assessment, where you are, what you need to improve on. Here. Okay, these are just the first top security controls that you need to look at. You can see the number 3 to the right of it. That's a target. That's maturity level 3. If you are 2, you know, well, it's nuanced a little bit, depending on your requirements. But to be certified, you need to be at 3, preferably at 3. You can kind of be comfortable when at the end of the day, your results show that you are 3 level, maturity level 3. These are prototypes protection. If you don't do prototypes, you don't worry about them. This is the major one that everybody has to look at, really. And all of these catalogs come with must and should requirements, depending on the level, assessment level that Kuma mentioned earlier, AL2 or AL3. If it is AL2, obviously you have the option to either do a remote audit or have someone come in. But AL3, you have no option but to have someone come in physically to look at the evidence that you have as controls that you have set. I'm going to go quickly here. I'm sorry, we're a little bit out of time, but I'm going quickly.
Mark, I think we need to wrap up in the next 3 or 4 minutes, so
exactly.
we can allow time for questions. So yeah,
exactly.
Go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Just to mention that a lot of you online have heard of Annex A, which is basically the controls for 27001. Tisax has taken a lot of the Annex A controls and used them. No problem with that. And then, by the way, both Tisax and 27001 basically are process-oriented information security requirements. Basically, you need to have processes, and these processes basically are the meat the meat of your company operation, basically. I'm gonna go through this. What secure means, that just means that, you know, there's no one way of basically declaring that you're secure. It is a partnership between you as a company and your client or your partners. These are a list of controls. I've already talked about this a little bit. There are not, just for information, there are 93 controls in the new version of 27001. and about 28. No, that's not true. That's 60, 65 in Tisax. I'm going quickly here. We've already talked about this. This is what we call a map, a process map that basically shows all the processes in your company. This is just a generic map. It doesn't have to look like this. You can customize your map according to your processes internally. And just to finish up here, what are the barriers to successful SMS? It is basically putting the blinds on, thinking that everything is fine, everything is working fine, and several other issues here that have to do with SMS controls. SOA, I want to talk quickly, very 1 minute more, Kumar, about SOA because it is, luckily for Tisax, it is not as stringent as 27001. If you are using 27001, you have a whole list of SOAs that you have to go through, the controls. That's what I usually ask for as a first document that I want to see. And determines basically the controls that you have to apply to your management. I think I'm done. I'm done. Kumar, take it over. And you have 2 minutes, Kumar. I will stop sharing. Okay. Are you there, Kumar? I don't see Kumar anymore. Kumar, are you there? Kumar, are you there?
It looks like Kumar is not in right now. He might be joining back.
He might be what?
Joining back.
Oh, okay. Okay, he's joining. Okay. We'll just give Kumar a couple of minutes here to join. I don't see him anywhere. Kumar, are you there? All right, while waiting for Kumar, are there any questions? I can take some questions, either through a chat or through. Are there any questions? Kobe, did you get any questions?
I do not see any questions pulled up right now. Nope, here we go. Q&A here. Can you see the Q&A?
Yeah. Classes to be able to read. How can we read it? Okay. Let's see. Could you please read it for me, please?
Yep, it says, how does this compare to ASpice? Is there any link between the two?
ASpice. That's a good question. I'm sorry, I cannot answer that question. Just because I'm not in the lane of Spice. I'm sorry. Any other question? Kumar, are you back? Yeah, it looks like he's trying to get back.
There's another question here, Mark.
Okay, good. Please go.
It says, why would an organization opt out for Tisax versus ISO 27001?
That's a very good question because I get that question a lot. And a little kind of twist to that is, what do I go first? Do I go into 27,001 first and do Tisax after that, or do I do Tisax first and after that 27,001? There isn't a right or wrong way to do that. The only thing I can say is that it might be a little biased here. I come from the world of 27,001. If you do 27,001 first, you'll be way ahead when you do a Tisax after that, because there are 93 controls that the ISO 27000 has, and much less in Tisax. So you'll be way ahead, even though there are a couple of things that Tisax has that 27000 doesn't have, like the prototypes, for example, that we talked about, like high data security that ISO 27000 have. But it is really the requirement that you have. If your clients ask you to do Tisax, then you go with Tisax. If they ask for both, you do both. If they don't have a preference, then you start with 27001. That's my recommendation, really. It looks like we lost you, Kumar. Are you back?
Yeah, I apologize. I got kicked out of Zoom and I had all kinds of trouble getting back on. So
no problem.
Apologies.
I've taken a couple of questions. That is the second question that I took that you just
Very
came
good,
on.
very good.
Do you want to just wrap up quickly here?
I know. I think if there are further questions, I think that's more important to cover the.
Okay. I don't think
the only thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was EVAV. But if there are questions, I'd rather take the questions.
Right. Are there any more questions?
Why don't you go ahead and talk about EVAV, and as a question pops up, I'll read it for you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I had 3 or 4 slides to talk about with EVAV, but I'm not going to go through that. I just wanted to mention that ISO 27001 has an official standard that you can get a PDF from the ISO organization. Tisax is more of a framework. Tisax is not so prescriptive on what you need to do. It's a little bit more of a higher level. So that's why Tisax depends on a lot of the 27001 controls, right? So Tisax is not going to get in the weeds of what you should do, and there's not so many shalls in the requirements and so on, right? But Tisax, when it comes to EVAV, the dependence on software and electronics is much higher. And especially when it comes to the autonomous vehicles, there is estimates that to run an autonomous vehicle, you are requiring computing power that is processing thousands of gigabytes of data each hour that an autonomous vehicle is in operation. And with electric vehicles, there is a lot of over-the-air updates, OTA, as it's called, software updates that the OEMs are pushing onto the vehicles. There is just so much more attack surfaces where bad actors can infiltrate into the vehicles and take control. So the kinds of checks and balances and safeguards that Tisax helps you put on your information security is relevant and applicable to electric vehicles and autonomous vehicles. I'll just leave it at that and take any further questions. No questions. Okay. Wanted to also mention that the auditors, I'm talking about third-party registrar auditors for Tisax, all have to be authorized by the ENX organization, which is in Germany. There's very few auditors worldwide at this point for Tisax. So if you are going for Tisax certification, one of the first things you want to do is decide on who's going to be your third-party registrar, and also get some a projected date when you're going to line up your audit. Because especially if you're on a time schedule, you want to make sure that the audit, the availability of a third-party auditor does not delay your ability to get certified and get a label, because some of the OEMs may establish a date by when they're expecting you to be certified in order for you to qualify for RFQs and get business from the OEM. So the sooner you get on the bandwagon and get your dates nailed down with the third-party registrars, the better for you. So. All right. If there are no further questions, I think I believe we can wrap this up.
Yeah, Kumar, I think
yeah.
we are at the end of the presentation. If there are no more questions, and we can wrap this up.
Yeah. Thank you all for your participation. We hope that it was useful, and Omnex would like to be a resource if we can help you in your journey with getting Tisax certified. Typically, it takes between 6 to 9 months with some consulting help for you to get to the stage where you can be ready for a third-party audit. If you decide to do it yourself, and you can do it yourself because all the information is available through the ENX website, if you do it yourself and you're starting from scratch, it's probably going to take you much longer than 6 to 9 months, but that's just an indication of the time frames that you're looking at. So.
I also want to thank you for joining Kumar and I this afternoon. I hope that we have given you some very high-level view of what Tisax is and what it requires, and hopefully, if you have some needs to get certified, you reach out to Omnex, because we do have a few people around that can help you out. Thank you very much.
Thank you.